blowout, Seattle or New England?
So, I think we are going to get a very good Super Bowl.
Oh, good.
I do not think this is going to be reminiscent, as you were talking about earlier, Brew, of the Super Bowls when you were getting into media and when I was a little kid.
Yep.
And they were all just,
Routes.
it was shocking when you got a good Super Bowl.
Right.
And then because we've had, I understand last year the Chiefs got blown out, but we have been, that game notwithstanding, on a run of great Super Bowls. And
The Bucs
so
and
we've
the
gotten used
Chiefs,
to it.
they got
I
blown out
think
twice.
that is what we are likely going to get, a close, tightly contested game. But if you are telling me that the story the Monday after the Super Bowl is someone got blown out, I think it's pretty clear it would be the Patriots that got blown out. I don't think Seattle can get blown out. Seattle this year has lost 3 times. Same as the Patriots, by the way. It's not like the Patriots have been blown out.
Yeah.
But it's talking about Seattle.
Yep.
2 of those losses, they led at the 2-minute warning of the game. And the other one, they lost by 2, despite Darnold throwing 4 interceptions. The Seahawks, to me, don't have a way that you are going to make them fall apart or crumble. And especially because we have seen, well, what if you lean on Darnold and force him into a terrible game? They've sustained that. They've sustained that against not a bad team, in my opinion, a great team in the Rams.
Yeah.
And listen, I think Vrabel is such a great coach. I also don't think the Pats are likely, even if they make some mistakes, to get blown out. But if they get the type of performance from May that they have gotten in various games this postseason or in stretches of games, that can lead to a blowout.
All right. I find myself in substantial alignment with that perspective. I must clarify, however, that my analysis should not be construed as a direct indictment of Drake May, suggesting he is fundamentally flawed or the central issue. The focus is rather on the collective offensive performance. Should the Seattle Seahawks defensive unit deliver a characteristically dominant display, the potential for a lopsided victory becomes a distinctly plausible outcome. Conversely, the pathway to a New England Patriots blowout victory appears, in my estimation, to hinge almost exclusively on a catastrophic individual performance from Seahawks quarterback Sam Darnold. It would necessitate one of those inexplicable regression to the mean games that provoke widespread astonishment. One can envision the post-game discourse, with analysts expressing shock that Darnold reverted to his most criticized form, thereby resurrecting the narratives of his detractors. It would be a contest where observers collectively conclude, so, the seeing ghosts phenomenon is real, or the specter of inconsistency that has always trailed Darnold finally manifested at the worst possible moment. Such a performance would starkly illustrate the quarterback's volatile range. While his ceiling is demonstrably high, his floor possesses the capacity to drastically redefine the entire conversation surrounding his reliability. Personally, I simply do not anticipate that scenario unfolding. Furthermore, the Seahawks defense operates at a genuinely elite level, a fact that cannot be overstated. I must reiterate that I am an unequivocal proponent of the Patriots project and a staunch believer in Drake May's prodigious talent. I have articulated this conviction repeatedly. This impending matchup is particularly intriguing to me precisely because I am eager to observe how the Seahawks' formidable defense contends with a quarterback of May's unique profile. Interestingly, the offensive schemes that have presented the greatest challenge to Seattle this season were orchestrated by Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams, a system built around the synergy of Stafford, Puka Nacua, and head coach Sean McVay's offensive ingenuity. Drake May represents a distinctly different stylistic challenge. His capacity to extend plays and inflict damage with his mobility introduces a variable that will test Seattle's defensive discipline in novel ways. I am genuinely curious to witness their strategic adaptation. Simultaneously, we must examine the Patriots' defense with clear-eyed objectivity. I am not seeking to diminish the quality of their opponents throughout the season, a narrative I have actively contested, especially when it was leveraged to critique May. Nevertheless, the factual record indicates that this defensive unit has not been rigorously tested by, nor had the opportunity to demonstrably stifle a consistently high-powered offensive attack. Their most credible benchmark was arguably the performance against the Buffalo Bills. Beyond that, their playoff run, while impressive in generating turnovers against Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud, requires contextualization. Let us not indulge in self-deception by characterizing those offenses as explosive juggernauts at the time of those matchups. They simply were not, particularly given the mitigating circumstances. Stroud was mired in a turnover-prone slump, and Herbert was operating behind a decimated offensive line before facing a blizzard and linebacker Jawan Bentley's standout performance. Consequently, from an evaluative standpoint regarding the Patriots' defense's capability against elite competition, those three playoff contests provide limited substantive evidence. Subsequent victories came against a transitioning Chicago Bears squad led by Justin Fields and a collection of teams embroiled in mid-season turmoil, featuring interim coaches, quarterback changes, and systemic instability. I maintain my belief that the Patriots' defense is an excellent group. This is not an attempt to downplay their accomplishments. However, I have witnessed the Seahawks' defense answer the bell against premier competition on a more frequent and verifiable basis, due simply to the rigor of their schedule and the caliber of opponents they were required to neutralize en route to the Super Bowl. Consider their resume, containing the Rams' potent attack, battling the San Francisco 49ers multiple times, holding them to 17 points pre-injury crisis, stifling the Pittsburgh Steelers and New Orleans Saints to 17 and 13 points respectively, and a unique challenge against Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals on a short week. A classic scenario for Murray's improvisational magic. The game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was an anomaly, plagued by tackling failures and a disastrous trick play. Beyond that, they thoroughly dominated the Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston Texans, and Washington Commanders. A game against the Rams, despite 4 turnovers from Sam Darnold, still resulted in limiting Los Angeles to only 21 points. They shut out the Minnesota Vikings, regardless of who was under center, dominated the Atlanta Falcons, and handled the Indianapolis Colts, led by an aging Phillip Rivers. The point is not to falsely claim the Seahawks vanquished a gauntlet of every elite quarterback, Stafford, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, in succession. Rather, the evidence demonstrates their defense possesses the capacity to elevate its performance during critical, high-stakes moments. A quality I am less certain we have had the opportunity to verify with the Patriots' defense given their playoff path. Reviewing New England's ledger, a Week 1 loss to Geno Smith and the Raiders, somewhat dismissible, surrendering 27 to the Miami Dolphins, a loss to Pittsburgh giving up 21, holding Carolina to 13, and the aforementioned strong showing against Buffalo, 20 points. Yet, as observed, the Bills themselves were inconsistent. Victories later came against the Cleveland Browns, New York Jets, New York Giants, and Cincinnati Bengals, likely with Joe Flacco. They yielded 35 in a later rematch with Buffalo, and faced the Baltimore Ravens with Tyler Huntley at quarterback following Lamar Jackson's in-game injury. This compilation is not intended to discredit New England, but to highlight a discrepancy in proven, top-tier resistance. I have seen the Seahawks defense be suffocating and elite in a manner that feels tangible and bone-deep. A sensation I have not yet fully experienced from the Patriots in the moments we would consider their sternest tests, particularly within the playoff crucible. Compounding this is the reality that the Seahawks' offensive personnel is astronomically superior to what the Los Angeles Chargers or Houston Texans fielded against New England. The Denver Broncos game is an irrelevant outlier. The disparity in offensive weaponry and scheme between Seattle and those earlier Patriot opponents is not marginal. It is vast. This foundational contrast is the wellspring of my confidence in the Seattle Seahawks position. I ultimately perceive only 2 plausible scenarios where Seattle loses this contest. The first, as elaborated, is a complete and total meltdown from Sam Darnold, triggering a cascade of mistakes that leaves analysts scrambling for post-hoc justifications. The second scenario, while I believe Drake May is a phenomenal talent destined for elite status, a future perennial mention alongside the contemporary tier of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, requires a Herculean, legacy-defining performance from the rookie in the Super Bowl itself. It would demand a showing where he unequivocally unleashes, leaving the global audience in awe, convinced there is literally nothing he cannot do on a football field. The sobering historical reality, however, is that such a debut Super Bowl performance from a quarterback is extraordinarily rare, irrespective of individual greatness. Consider recent history. Patrick Mahomes, in his first Super Bowl, 2019, threw 2 interceptions and posted a passer rating around 78. In 2020, he was thoroughly outplayed. In 2021, he wasn't present. Other first-timers like Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford played admirably, with great moments, but were not flawless or overwhelmingly dominant. Stafford wasn't even the game's MVP. Arguably, the most impressive first Super Bowl showing in recent memory was Jalen Hurts in 2022, where he set records, accounted for over 300 total yards and 3 touchdowns, yet still committed a critical fumble that had severe consequences in a losing effort. Brock Purdy's first appearance in 2023 was competent but not earth-shattering, nor was Mahomes' performance in that same game. We simply do not often witness a quarterback, no matter how special, deliver a transcendent, flawless, ball-out performance in their inaugural Super Bowl appearance. The closest approximation was Hurts, and it culminated in a loss. Therefore, while it is absolutely within the realm of possibility for Drake May to author such a game, the confluence of factors makes it statistically improbable. Doing so not only in the Super Bowl, but in his first ever, at his young age, and against a defense of Seattle's caliber. These are all critical variables that must be factored into any balanced conversation about potential blowout directions. To conclude with a necessary disclaimer, these speculative exercises are inherently designed to force a binary choice, to corner us into a definitive prediction. I understand how fans can find such questions frustrating, especially when dissecting the same 2 teams for an extended period. However, the purpose is to embrace that constraint, to engage in the mental exercise for the sake of stimulating and interesting dialogue. It is the modern sports equivalent of debating who would win in a fight, Superman or Thanos. The value lies in the intellectual engagement and entertainment derived from the process. One can either participate in that spirit, enjoying the hypothetical fray, or dismiss it outright as trivial. The key is to recognize the conversation for what it is. Those are my comprehensive reflections on the matter. I am genuinely keen to hear your perspectives. What is your analysis of the Seattle Seahawks versus New England Patriots matchup? Which team do you believe holds a greater likelihood of securing a blowout victory? And if you envision a lopsided result in either direction, what specific sequence of events do you anticipate unfolding to produce it? Please elaborate on the why behind your prediction. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I make a commitment to read every single response. Whether you find yourself in agreement with my reasoning or in vehement opposition, I welcome the discourse. Let's engage in detailed discussions and spirited debates, but ultimately, let's ensure the exchange remains enjoyable. Please consider subscribing to this channel. We are diligently building a remarkable community here, and I would be absolutely delighted to welcome you as a participant. The goal is to cultivate a digital space where we collectively feel a sense of connection and shared passion, and I believe we are making significant strides toward that objective. Also, please remember to like this video, as such engagement substantively assists with content visibility and algorithmic promotion. Thank you sincerely for your time and engagement.